Everyone thinks the M4 Mac Mini is just a cute little entry-level Mac. But here is the thing. This tiny box absolutely embarrasses a lot of full-size desktops and still manages to have one huge catch you need to know about. I have been daily driving the M4 Mac Mini for the past few weeks, editing 4K video, running ridiculous numbers of Chrome tabs, and even trying some light gaming. On paper, it looks like a boring spec bump from the M2 Mini. But once I started stress testing it in real projects, a few things jumped out at me that totally flipped my expectations, especially around performance, thermals, and who should actually not buy this. Before we dive into what I discovered, and I show you some on-screen benchmarks and real project timelines, quick heads up. If you are already leaning toward the M4 Mac Mini and just want the best current price, I will have it linked down in the description. But stick around, because one of the things I found could save you a lot of money or a lot of frustration. So why did I even bother with the M4 Mac Mini? My main machine before this was an older Intel iMac that sounded like a jet engine every time I opened Final Cut. I tried a couple of Windows Mini PCs that promised desktop power in a tiny box, but under real load they thermal throttled like crazy. Timelines got choppy, fans screamed, and I started to hate editing. I wanted something small, quiet, and powerful enough to handle 4K editing, screen recording, and a ridiculous multitasking workflow, all without turning my desk into a space heater. When Apple announced M4 for the iPad Pro, I was skeptical that a chip designed for a tablet could really replace a desktop. But when the M4 finally landed in the Mac Mini, I decided to put my money where my skepticism was and see if this thing could actually become my main work machine. The first test was the big one, content creation. I pulled in a real project, a 12-minute 4K timeline with color correction, titles, a few plugins, and background music. On screen, you can see the timeline I used. On my old setup, that would stutter the moment I added adjustment layers. On the M4 Mac Mini, playback stayed smooth at full quality almost the entire time. Exports were noticeably faster than on the last-gen Mini I borrowed from a friend for comparison, and the crazy part was the fan. It barely ramped up. I had a power meter plugged into the wall, and even during export, the power draw stayed surprisingly low for how much work it was doing. But then I hit the first red flag. With multiple heavy apps open, Final Cut, Photoshop, Chrome with 20 tabs, and Spotify, the base 8 gig memory configuration started to feel cramped. App swapping slowed down a bit, and I could see memory pressure creeping into the yellow. Next, I tested it as a daily workhorse. Think email, dozens of Chrome tabs, Slack, Zoom calls, Notion, and some light photo editing. Here, the M4 Mac Mini felt almost bored. App launches were snappy, switching between virtual desktops was instant, and even during long Zoom calls with screen sharing, the fan stayed basically inaudible. For a home office or student setup, this is more power than most people will ever use. But then, another catch. If you are planning to run multiple high-res monitors, you need to pay attention to your configuration. The M4 handles dual displays like an ultra-wide plus a 4K monitor just fine, but this is still a fixed I/O machine. No PCIe slots, no GPU upgrades later. What you buy is what you are stuck with. Then I tried the thing everyone quietly wonders about with Macs. Can it game? Look, let us be real. The M4 Mac Mini is not a dedicated gaming PC. Native Apple Silicon titles and Apple Arcade games run great, and some games through the latest compatibility layers are playable at 1080p or 1440p with medium settings. On screen, I will show you a couple of frame rate snippets. For casual gaming after work, it is totally fine. But if your idea of fun is high-refresh 4K AAA gaming with all the sliders maxed, this is not your dream machine. At that point, you are better off with a proper gaming rig or a console next to it. Finally, I tested thermals and noise over time. I ran a sustained CPU and GPU load for around 30 minutes while recording the temperature and fan behavior. The metal chassis does get warm to the touch, but not crazy hot, and the fan curve is conservative. This is where the M4 architecture really flexes. You are getting serious performance per watt in a box that is smaller than a lot of routers. But here is where it gets interesting. That efficiency is amazing for longevity and power bills. Yet Apple still ships this thing with a tiny base SSD on the entry model. Just like previous minis, the smallest SSD not only fills up fast, it is usually slower, and you cannot upgrade it later. That combo with 8 gigs of memory is the silent trap of this machine. The most surprising thing I discovered is this. The M4 Mac Mini is way more powerful than its price and size suggest, but only if you respect its constraints. Once I upgraded to more unified memory and a larger SSD, it stopped feeling like a cute side machine and started feeling like a legit main desktop. Exports got even more consistent. Multitasking stayed smooth no matter how many apps I abused, and it felt like the box finally matched the potential of the M4 chip that Apple already proved in the latest iPad Pro. Compared to the previous M2 Mini, the jump is not about raw benchmark numbers alone. It is about how long it can sustain that performance quietly and how much smoother it feels with modern workflows. If you already own an M2 Mini and only do light tasks, this upgrade might feel unnecessary. But if you are coming from Intel, or you actually push your machine with creative work, the M4 Mini lands in that sweet spot of power, silence, and efficiency. It sounds almost too good to be true, but the catch is real. The wrong configuration will bottleneck everything. Now that you know where the M4 Mac Mini truly shines and where Apple quietly cut corners, the next step is picking the right version. If you are thinking about grabbing one, check the link in the description for the current pricing and deals. And do it before stock on the more sensible configurations gets weird like it usually does during sales and new launches. Bottom line, the M4 Mac Mini is an insanely capable little desktop for creators, developers, and anyone who wants a silent, minimal setup that just gets out of the way. If you mostly browse, stream, and do documents, it is almost overkill. If you are a serious gamer or you need upgradable internals and massive GPU horsepower, this is not for you. But if you have been waiting for a tiny Mac that can legitimately replace a big, noisy tower, as long as you avoid the bargain basement configuration, the M4 Mac Mini is the sleeper powerhouse on Apple's lineup. In a world obsessed with bigger and louder, this is the small box that quietly wins.